Welcome to the More Podcast with Ava and Najee, where we are manifesting original rich bitch experiences. Each week, we bring you travel reviews, wellness advice, and general millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. Hi, Ava.
Hey, Najee. How's it going?
It's going. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm super excited today because we are having our very first pod guest.
Yay, first guest.
Should we just go ahead and get right into it?
Let's just get started. I'm super excited for today.
Me too. Okay, so today joining us, we have Kelsey Erickson. And Kelsey is, in addition to being a really good friend of mine, she's an intuitive life coach, a spiritual healer, and a human design expert. And so today she is going to join us to talk all about human design, which I think is going to be great because, you know, we really love to explore things that make us feel more of who we are. And when I discovered human design through Kelsey a couple of years ago now, I just felt really seen. So I'm really excited to have her come in and share this wisdom.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have Kelsey here. I mean, I'm actually very new to the whole human design space. So when it was introduced to me and I kind of ran my own chart online, which you can find for free, I thought it was very kind of interesting how it could relate to your zodiac and astrology sign. And I saw some things that I resonated with a lot and some things that made me think maybe this was me back in the day, because I started to have a little bit of flashbacks back to how I used to be before, you know, adulting and you grow up and have all these experiences that shape who you are. So I'm kind of excited to get into how human design can have a lot of those practical applications to our everyday life.
Perfect. Well, I'm super excited to introduce you guys. I think she's here, so let's let her in. Kelsey, welcome to the More Podcast.
Yay.
Nice to. Hello.
Kelsey, this is Najee. Najee, this is Kelsey.
Hi. Nice to meet
Kelsey,
you.
it's so nice to meet you. And I love everything and all the support you've been giving to us. And I'm just so happy to have you here.
Thank you. New favorite show.
Me too, obviously. New favorite show. I'm like, I love when all of my worlds collide selfishly. So, pro tip, get yourself a job or a career where you can work and hang out with your friends.
Imagine that.
It makes everything just a little easier, doesn't it?
It does. Well, Kelsey, we're so excited to have you today. I gave a brief overview of what you do as an intuitive life coach, a healer, and also a human design expert, but would love to hear just a bit more about you in your own words.
Wow. I'm like, what did you say? I wish I would have heard that. All good things.
It was basically that,
Okay.
very high level.
So yeah, I'm Kelsey. I am a intuitive life coach. What does that mean? I basically use my intuitive skills and your intuitive skills, and that's how I facilitate the process of life coaching. I've been doing this for almost 7 years now. Yeah, almost 7 years, which is wild. I've had different evolutions of what my business looks like, but that's part of my brand and what I talk about. So it's very fitting in that way. Now you're going to hear my dog bark because we just got a package. And Ava knows my dog, but I have a little dog who is the ruler of everything related to me and my family and my house. So
Tell Pico I say hey.
He might start crying. He
Miss
misses
him.
you.
Oh my gosh. Luckily, we're very pet friendly here at the More Podcast. So bark away, Pico, but not too much.
I know. I think I heard that on the
Just
on
a
the
little.
social media wellness. That's what you've got on your social media. Dogs is one of your things, Najee.
Yep, pets are absolutely on my list. So all thing pets related, I am obsessed. So I can't wait to hopefully one day meet Pico. You know, I love dogs.
I know. I was thinking, I was like,
Yes.
we're both going to be back in Minneapolis, so I can go on the next adventure around Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
Just inviting myself.
Yes, we'll do the tour. We'll do the tour because Najee has not eaten at the Colita restaurant, which you know we love.
We do.
So he went to Martina. Yeah. So I think we need to make a plan, all three of us in Minneapolis at Colita. Boom.
Boom. And then we can probably talk about all of our human design charts, which should be fun.
Yes.
Oh,
Which is why
Yes.
we're here. So Kelsey, obviously human design is one element of what you do, but you are the first person who introduced me to human design. I hadn't heard about it until you and I connected in the pandemic a couple years ago, and you sent me a link to generate my free chart. And, similar to other things, I love, self-study and digging into them. And I just found the information, the whole human design system, really helpful information. Obviously, just another lens to understand myself. And so one of the things we love to do here is share the things that make us more us. And hopefully our listeners will find something that they can really gravitate towards and feel a bit more true to themselves. So what is human design? Can you break it down?
Yes. And it's exactly that, what you described and what this podcast is about. It's really it can be a tool to help with the unraveling of like who you are when you take away all those things of like who people tell you you should be or what you should do, yada, yada. A lot of the things that we sometimes masks and layers we put on ourselves for a lot of different reasons. And now I'm laughing because I remember that call, Ava, and now there's like a meme about it, like, little miss, what's your human design? Like, I think that I just like hit like, so what's your birthday and what time were you born? Yeah, that's funny. Nothing's changed in that sense. So human design at its simplest is a really complex system, and I know the irony within that description. Human design pulls in from astrology, it pulls in from the I Ching, it pulls in from the chakra system. It's like all these things all into one. I can liken it to a personality test, but it's not really that. It really is, again, that unconditioned version of you on an energetic level. And that's what I love about it, because a lot of times you can look at something like a personality test, like an Enneagram or like a Strengths Finders, but sometimes those things, when you're taking that quiz, you're taking it from the version of you that has been successful by doing those things. Like I remember taking that kind of test like at work or something and being like, well, I hope I get the right, type or whatever that shows like, I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to be whatever. Right. But like with human design, there's no like trick in the system. It's just like kind of who you were at that point in time when you were born, when you came into this world. So there's a lot of layers to it. It's very energy based. Again, like I said, which I really like, because I think if you can master your energy, your personal energy, I think that's what helps you, again, find that unconditioned self and come forward more fully and more truly as yourself.
Mm-hmm. I really love that. And this will make more sense once you share the types with us, but I really relate to that conditioning because I operated in like a generator capacity for so many years, and to find out that I was a projector really just gave me some permission to be like, no wonder you didn't feel good running your life this way, or like trying to create, just like the level of output. And again, this will make all sense when we break down the types, but for me, it just gave me a really nice layer of permission and understanding to be like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like I'm just different than 80% or whatever, it's 80% of the people that I'm surrounding myself with. So how did you find human design? Like how did you discover it?
Okay, so the first time I pulled my chart, I found out I was a projector, and it had, here's just a caveat I'll say first. When you go and you pull your chart for the first time, there is a lot of new language within human design that can sometimes be off-putting. Either you don't like what you're reading or you don't understand what you're reading. So just know that when you open that can of worms, it's a whole new language. So just take it bit by bit. That's the best place to start. So I pulled my chart and I found out I was a projector too, like you, Ava. And it said this line like, wait for the invitation. And I was like, I don't wait for anyone. I, do my thing. I lead the way. And it was very off-putting. So this was like 2019 probably. And I just like, it must have been like a online chart or something. And I just like closed out. I was like, this is dumb. Whatever this thing is, it's stupid. Which you can just tell, like it was stabbing directly at like the thing I needed to pay attention to because I was so triggered by it. Anyway, I came back around because I must have been on an email list for somebody. And the more I read it, the more I kind of felt like how you described, Ava, where I was like, when I put everything aside, when I put away the expectations that everyone in the world and their mom have of me, this sounds and feels like me to my core. And when I had that more like peaceful reaction to it is when I was able to go more in depth with it. So I kind of had to come back around a second time. But once I did, it was just fascinating. And that's when I became like, I'm like, people need to know this. People need to know how they're designed. People need to know how to use their energy, especially those, actually, like all three of us, who are not in the majority type, which is the generator, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And Najee, I think so. One of the first things, it's truly become like, what's your sign? One of the first things I had Najee do when we were talking about creating this podcast is like, have you ever heard of human design? Like, I want you to go in and fill out your profile. Like, tell me what you are. In my back of my head, I'm like, as long as he's not a generator, this will be great.
Like good luck with that, since they're the most of the population. But luckily, I'm not.
I know, but I feel like, Najee, maybe you resonate with a little bit of that resistance that Kelsey was kind of sharing with us, because I know that, like, off the cuff, like, you didn't necessarily really gravitate towards some of those descriptors, if you will.
Yeah, I didn't. And this, again, will make more sense once you get into the types. But just like you guys, I felt kind of like opposite than what my original type had become. So I was a manifestor. So I did kind of resonate a lot with the kind of doing your own thing, maybe getting things started and things like that. But it felt more like a very much like a powerful leader kind of type. These people lead the charge, they get things started, they get things done. They're best when they're, telling people or directing people how to do things. And I'm more of a person that kind of just does my own thing. You can jump on board or you cannot jump on board, but I'm not going to sit here and convince you to do otherwise. Like, you're either with it or you're not. So it was just very, very interesting. But then when I start to think a little bit more about it, and certain points in my past, both in childhood and my early adulthood, I could see where it did apply and make sense. But I'm definitely interested to kind of get into it and see how this can really apply to where I'm at now, and understanding that it's such a complex system and that everyone has their own kind of like personalized profile, just like everyone has their own personalized astrology birth chart, kind of how the different energies kind of coexist and how we move in and out of each energies and borrow from each particular type. So I'm just super excited to kind of learn more about it, because it was so interesting when I first found out that I was a manifestor.
Yes. So if we walk through like the first time user flow, if you will, for anyone who's listening and hearing human design for the first time, essentially what happens, and we'll link this in the show notes, but there are places you can go online to generate a free equivalent to what, like a birth chart, and it spits out a type. And so, Kelsey, what are all the type options? And can you just give us like a high level overview of how we could think about each type?
Yeah. So I'll start with the majority, because I'm guessing as listeners get into this, there's going to be a lot that falls in that category. So the majority type is what's called a generator. And this is in human design what we call an energy type. So a generator is here to really respond to the world around them. They make up the majority of the population. I think it's like, 70 some percent, I want to say. And they have this like magical thing, which is this kind of like their namesake, like this internal force of energy where they can literally like wake up, sun up till sundown, and like do that every single day, kind of no questions asked. And for a lot of people, who don't fall in that category, they don't necessarily have that. There's people like all three of us who need rest in different ways, who aren't just here to like literally, work that grind in that way. But that's like what the collective is, right? That's like what the society says is like the right thing to do is, you got to be busy all day long. The busier you are, the more badges you get, that kind of thing. But what generators are really, really magical at is like just getting stuff done. So these are the people that like really help to like carry the collective forward. So when a generator has a good idea, I'm like, you need to run with that. Like you need to start making that happen, because part of their ideas and what they're here to do is, like I said, like responding to the world around them. So like, this is a cheesy example. One thing I always say when I'm teaching this is like a generator will be the one who's like, hey, that's a really dangerous intersection. I'm going to start a petition to get signatures to go to City Hall to turn this into a roundabout. Like our generators are the ones that are sort of like looking out and like ground level, like keeping things moving. A type that's sort of like a generator is a manifesting generator. So it's kind of like a manifestor and a generator had a baby. So manifesting generators have all the same things as a generator, but they also can pull from some of that manifestor energy, which I'll describe in a second. They are not only here to like lead the charge and respond to the world around them, but they also like are these multi-passionate people who can do like a lot of different things. If you know someone who's in like 6 different clubs and they have like 3 businesses and they work a full-time job and they're like chairman of their local board, like this might be a manifesting generator, especially the ones who really can do that with ease. Like not the ones who are doing that because they want like that busy badge, but the ones that just like truly are like authentically in that. They're also an energy type, which means that they have this like unlimited source of energy, sun up till sundown.
I feel like the coaches that I know are all manifesting generators. Like the people that I'm learning from right now, whenever I find out they're a manager, I'm like, oh, I could have guessed. But it's like they can like create so many things all the time and they're just like poof, making it happen. And it's like, wow, I like that. As a projector, I'm like, I want to be more like
I was like,
that.
I can only dream to have that much energy, guys.
Yes.
I can only dream.
Yes. But that's a good reminder too. So like, think about it. That's in the part of the majority. So if you're not part of that, but you're seeing that and you're seeing that as an example of success or of what it looks like to be in business or what it looks like to be in the corporate space, like then you're comparing yourself without knowing it energetically to something that you are just not designed to be. And I think that happens a lot in our world too. So that's part of, again, another reason why I love human design is because we can start to unravel some of that stuff and just have you focused on who you are, because that's the best version of you can ever be. So
yes.
Okay, let's talk about manifestors next. So I totally agree with what you were saying, Najee, about like feeling like that was like the powerful leader, like telling the people what to do. And I think that is like a common articulation of a manifestor, but they are, like you said, like very much in desire of independence, of doing their own thing. And you have that actually like amplified in your chart. So when you pull up your chart, you have something called, it's called the right angle cross of the vessel of love, which sometimes you can look to this point in your chart for like your life purpose. And literally what that means is like, you are here to just like embody what it looks like to be alive. So like your form of leadership can just be like you doing your thing, fully being in yourself, in your soul, in your energy. And like, that's how your leadership energy comes out, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you're like ultra in that, like, as long as you're doing you and you're aligned with doing you, you're like embodying that part of your chart.
Angle cross of the being of love. Is that what you said?
Right angle cross of the vessel of love.
That sounds so pretty.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Manifestors, though, I will say they're highly independent, but there is this desire to be leading something. So whether that looks like a group of people or an initiative or a broader purpose, they want to be leading something and they want to feel like the thing that they're leading is successful. So you can't fully escape the leadership element that is within your energy, but it doesn't have to look like kind of that traditional manager role where like you tell people what to do and you write and you have all the answers. We could do a whole other episode on leadership and how I think that that's changing, but we'll keep it to human design right now.
Perfect.
The manifestor is also considered an energy type, but not in the same way that generators and manifesting generators are. You have internal energy, but it just works differently. So generators literally have like that all day long, all the time. Manifestors have sort of a happy medium of being able to utilize that internal energy, but then also needing rest, again, that alone time, that individual time, in order so that you can ramp up and serve the broader community. Manifestors are only like 7% of the population. They're less than projectors too. So Ava, you know how you and I felt knowing that we were in that minority in that way. So like there's even less of you, Najee, and that can be kind of a lonely place because you feel like you have this thing that you want to do, but then you're not really seeing other people that think like you, act like you, that sort of thing.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, and one more thing about manifestors. Your key for manifestors is using your voice and communicating. So manifestors can be known to, okay, can we talk about auras for a second? Do we know what auras are?
Yes,
we love auras.
please.
Yes.
Is this
Let's go.
unseen thing around you, a field of energy, and manifestors have a very, in the human design lens, they have a very pointy aura. So when you walk up to me, we meet for the first time, I might just instinctively feel your energy like, damn, like, why is he just like pointing at me, you know? And I don't like that. Or you might go up to generator and they're sensitive to that too. And what often happens with manifestors is that pointy aura gets in their way. And it's common, you'll see like in relationships and stuff, you'll see like a generator who will like basically tell the manifestor what to do because that's how they're trying to deal with that pointy energy. So when I say like your best thing is to use your voice, that's how you break that pointiness. Like the more you communicate, actually like over communicate, that's like the best place for manifestors to do anything they want to do, because that's how you break that gap of like that, oh, I'm kind of put off by this energy right now. It's how you like kind of warm things up and like set the stage for like what you really want to do when you're in an energetic exchange with someone. Do you ever feel that? Do you ever feel like people like are coming at you like trying to maybe like control you or dismiss what you're saying or overlook what you're saying, like any sort of?
Yeah, more often than I'd like, because I really don't like being told what to do. So any type of like control or like overbearing type of situation or energy, I immediately reject. But I also feel like the pointy aura makes sense because sometimes, even though I feel like I have really, really genuine and really good intentions, and I'm a super, super chill guy, very, very nice, go with the flow, sometimes I feel like my aura doesn't really reflect that. So being able to kind of use my voice, that's something I've been kind of telling myself more often to do. And it's definitely on my goal list for 2023. It's just that like I'm not an outgoing individual, but it's something I feel like needs to change. Like I definitely need to use my voice more and just kind of be a little bit more outgoing. So it's hearing you say it kind of just reaffirms some of the things I've been thinking over the past couple months.
And it's not even, I mean,
but can we just acknowledge that you are now a podcast co-host? And so this goal is already in action.
We're making steps. We're making steps.
It's happening.
We love the progress.
The other thing I'll say too is that it's not even necessarily, you might have personal reasons for wanting to be more outgoing too, but it's not even necessarily that. It's like even communicating more on like your chillness. Like, no, I'm not interested in doing that today because I'm literally going to go take a nap. Like just, it's the simple moments of communication that can be really unlocking for manifestors.
Makes sense.
Okay, then we'll move over to the non-energy side. So again, this is probably one of the things that I read where I was just like, what do you mean non-energy? Like I need energy to go about my life. Projectors, and then the last type, reflectors, are non-energy types. So projectors don't have that ability to like sun up, sun down, go all day long. They are a very rest-oriented type. For example, you know, you'll hear like a projector should work maybe like 4 hours a day. Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't know the last like job that was literally, we're going to pay you a 40-hour week salary, but you only need to do 4 hours of work each day. Like that just doesn't work or exist in our society right now. Projectors are here to guide. So they are this like enveloping force that can help move the collective forward. They can help move the other types forward. They can be good coaches, role models, leaders, things like that. The thing that often puts, besides all the rest talk, because it's like rest is not allowed in our world. The thing that can sometimes put projectors off is this strategy of waiting for the invitation. And it doesn't mean like you sit on your hands and you do nothing all day long and wait for like someone to come knock on your door and deliver the glass slipper. It is about being in your own energy. So the way that a projector cultivates their energy is through their passions, what they feel most playful about, where their intuition is bringing them. When they do that, like for example, for me, I call them rabbit holes. Like when I can just like be in my office and like be like diving into human design, like when I was preparing for this podcast episode, like I could have done that. It could have been years that I was sitting there doing that and I had no qualms about my energy, how much I had left, where I was going with it. Like I could have just been there fully present. Like I said, I could have been doing that for years. Who knows? It could have taken me 5 minutes. Who knows? But that is part of the projector energy. Ava, anything you would add to that from your own personal experience?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like once you get in a rabbit hole, it's like stay there until like the energy runs out. That's something that I've noticed just in my transition from having a corporate career, which, you know, that structure, Kelsey, I know you and I have had like separate conversations about this, but like it really operates in more of that generator way. And so like for 80% of the population, that's fantastic. But for the rest of us, it's like, oh my God, like it feels like that hamster wheel. Transitioning into entrepreneurship, it's like, okay, you know, how can I now utilize this knowledge around what it means to have a few hours of really concentrated work that I could do in one day? And it might set me like a week ahead of, you know, just kind of like trying to do that for like 8 hours every single day. I've noticed that is really powerful. And at the same time, I don't know if this is a projector thing or if this is just Aquarius thing, who knows? But I find that once and Kelsey, you've encouraged me to do this too. It's like, follow the excitement, follow the passion, like in the moment. And so I might find myself actually working on a new coaching offer for 8 hours in one day. But it was that same feeling that you mentioned of it's like, I'm in this rabbit hole where I'm just enjoying it and I don't know what time it is. And I'm just going to keep going. And so that's something that I've learned to kind of lean into, which again, it fits really outside of everything that we've learned for the first, 30 some years about what it means to be productive, what it means to be a good employee, a good leader, fill in the blank. So I totally agree with you. And it's just, it takes a lot of, regardless of your human design type, I think it takes a lot of unlearning to embrace it. And I don't know, it's been like 2 years that I've now had this awareness. It's still like a daily exercise of like, oh, maybe I could consider this, because to your point, it's so complex. And honestly, we're just obviously scratching the surface, but there's just so many layers to this that I think are really cool.
Yeah. And I was just going to say too, like when I first started talking about human design, I described it as a very complex system. So like you can look at your type, but then there's also your profile, there's your authority. When you pull up the thing, you're going to see this weird image with all these squares and shapes and lines, and things are colored in and some aren't. Like there's so many different ways you can look at it. And Najee, you described it perfectly. Like everyone has such a unique blueprint to their human design. Like I've never seen two of the same charts. And I've been doing this for a few years now. So I don't know if two exact charts even can exist. But Ava, to your thing, what you kind of made me think of, I think that totally is a projector thing, but I also need to just like give the commercial to intuition here. So while I love human design, I think it's a really cool tool to bring you back to, again, who you were before the world told you who you should be. I think your intuition always knows best. So human design might tell you something and you might just be like, I don't agree with that. That is not for me. That's not who I am. I want you to follow that intuitive hit rather than trying to force yourself square peg round hole into something that it's not for you, because then what you're doing is you're using human design to decondition and then recondition yourself to something that is a system telling you what you should be, right? So it's like it can turn into something that's maybe not as liberating as it feels when you're not following your intuition as you're interacting with it. So
that's a really good
there's
call
my
out.
tangent. Thank you.
I can't blame everything on being a projector. I can only work 3 hours. Sorry, guys.
Well, you could ride that wave. I support that, but you know what I'm saying. So sometimes
you support that.
It's following your intuition with these sort of things. Yeah. Anything, whether it's human design or any other system, astrology, whatever. Like your intuition needs to come first. That inner voice, that inner truth needs to be the guiding light in how you're learning and how you're deconditioning, because that's ultimately what you're trying to get to. That your intuition is your highest self. Your intuition is your true self. So let that lead the way, and the rest will, fall into place.
Yeah, basically what you can from, charts like your astrology chart or your human design chart. And some things are just not going to resonate and you shouldn't force it. Like you said, your intuition is definitely your highest self. So listen to your heart. Listen to that cross of the vessel of love that you call your heart. Because it'll lead you in the right direction.
Exactly.
I don't think everyone has that, Najee. Not everyone has the fancy love cross.
No, they don't.
That's just you, babe.
Okay, well, I'll just chalk it up to being special then.
You are special.
Oh, thanks.
So we have the human design types, and I think that's super helpful to understand like how they can all ebb and flow, some of the kind of key characteristics. One of the ways that I have always been curious about how to apply this is in more of like a collaborative or like a work setting. So Kelsey, when you and I first connected on human design, I had a team and I was immediately interested in like, oh, like this person on my team, I bet they do this. Like they just never run out of energy. They're always, this, that, the other thing. And I started thinking about, well, how cool would it be to actually have that information and really utilize people's strengths and really build out teams, whether you're talking about work, you're talking about friend groups, talking about relationships that can support each other. So one of the things that I selfishly requested for you to do for us today is actually take a look at Najee and I's human design charts and then actually like read them as a partnership with the goal of giving more kind of tangibility to these concepts and seeing like how these certain traits can interplay, how we can use this information to better everything we're doing together. So thank you in advance. I know you spent a lot of time digging into this and we're super excited to hear it.
And I got my notebook ready because I'm taking notes.
I love this.
Oh, we're taking notes.
Yeah, so this was super fun. So you can do this. You can do this for partnerships. You can do this for broader teams, like you said. You can even do this with non-human entities. So I've for example, I've pulled up what my business is. So like I picked a first time for my business and, what is she? What does she look like versus me and my projector energy? My business is a manifesting generator. So, okay, wild.
Have you done it for Pico?
I'm pretty sure Pico's a generator. I have a lot of insight to back that up. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Okay. So I'm always fascinated when I do these partnership things because I'm always like, I don't know why. I'm like, what if I pull this partnership and it's like, like, but that hasn't happened yet. It's actually really cool. Every single time I do this, I'm blown away because you can see so much of the opportunities and the synergies within a partnership. And it's kind of like it just is very affirming. It's like, oh, of course you two are doing this together. So a couple of things that I pulled out specifically from your chart are you have two channels where you each have a gate. So if you pull up your chart and you see the weird little visual thing, if you have one of the lines that's only like halfway filled in, that's called a gate. If you have it filled in from one shape to the other shape, that's called a channel. What you both have is two channels that you make together. So the first one is called Channel of the Alpha, 31-7. Najee has gate 31 and Ava has gate 7. This is actually a very partnership, leadership oriented channel. So like one needs the other to fully do what they're here to lead and create. Ava's 7 amplifies Najee's voice. So his voice is huge for him as a manifestor, and Ava's 7 energy brings, the microphone almost, so to speak. And then Najee's 31 gives Ava influence. So it backs up her projector energy and allows like her voice to be one of influence rather than one that needs, that invitation to come forward. It's like you guys complete that in that way. That's really cool. I also love what it's called, Channel the Alpha. Like that's just good energy.
Yes.
And then another one, which I think is fundamental to like the mission of this podcast, is called Channel of the Prodigal. Najee has gate 33 and Ava has gate 13. And what this channel is you become like the memory keeper for the future. So you collect the memories of what works or maybe what didn't, and you're the ones that help to translate that for future benefit. So Najee's 33 allows Ava's knowledge to come out. So I've spent a lot of time with Ava. She's like this sitting, wise woman who just knows so much more than I ever imagined. Every time something comes out of your mouth, I'm like, damn, she's smart. Najee's 33 helps to pull that forward. So Najee, your strength, especially on the More Pod, is like asking questions, kind of pulling some of that out of Ava. Again, using your voice to get to go deeper and to bring that forward for the broader mission of helping people get better. Ava's 13 creates a container of right timing. So for you, Najee, that means like this, just even having it here gives you a place to like funnel your voice and funnel like in the right timing, your wisdom, your things you want to bring to the table. So sometimes on your own without Ava, it might feel like, damn, I got to talk to that person about that, but when should I do it? Like, there might be like more of that overthinking about how to use your voice. But when you have this thing, it's like dedicated purely to bringing that forward and bringing that mission alive. Again, using your voice, which is I'm going to say this like 50 more times.
I'm like freaking out. This feels like a psychic reading.
Like it's definitely clicking.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
Side note, it is Tarot Tuesday, so if we want to end with a tarot pull, we can do that.
Yes. Ooh. Let's do a tarot pull at the end. Absolutely.
Okay, another thing that was... Wait. I could talk all day long. I'm in my little rabbit hole. So any question on either of those channels?
No, I think it all clicks and it tracks. So
okay, perfect.
It tracks. I'm like,
definitely tracks.
God. Beautiful. Okay, another thing I want to call out is when you pull your chart at the very top, there are these different arrows and they can either go left or they can go right. And everyone has a different combination of it. But you both have your environment arrow, which is like your physical environment, is pointing to the right. It's the bottom left-hand arrow. What this means is you need your physical environment to evolve and to change. So I wouldn't be surprised if, I kind of know this about Ava, but Najee, like, if you like to go to different coffee shops, and I know you both like to travel, like that all very much like jives, and you have that same aligned thing. So, I mean, I think that just obviously supports the travel element of this podcast, but also like keep that in mind if you're starting to feel stuck or stagnant. Like, how can you make the environment of the More podcast feel fluid, feel different, feel like change of scenery? You know, for me personally, I have this too. And what that's always looked like for me is that, like, when I was little, I was always rearranging my room in my office, like just setting up for today. I was like, maybe I'll sit over here. Maybe I'll sit over there. Oh, I'll move this over here. Like, or, you know, we'll hang up here and I'm going to like go walk and work from a park or go to a coffee shop. Like, it's just to keep your environment fluid is key. You both also have what they call like the cave environment, which is fascinating. So that can look like needing, you need like wherever you are in that fluid time, you need like a home base. And that might look like different things. That could be like something you carry with you at all times. That could be literally like a physical room. But the other thing that it made me think of for this podcast is like when I think of caves, I went to like the subconscious. I went to like the next, you know, layer under, like going deeper. So I think that can be almost like a stretch goal for the More podcast is like, how deep can you go? How far are you going to take this? Because I think you both have the ability to go very deep and to bring forth what you're trying to bring forth in a probably deeper way than you're even thinking right now.
It's a show. We're creating a show. It's a podcast right now.
But to go deeper, is that similar or is that different than just like going bigger, right? So like things evolve, things change, things grow. But then at the same time, I think if you're going deeper into something, you're getting a little bit more, I guess, substantial with maybe some of the content, maybe how you're looking at things inwardly? Is there like a difference in between that, or could they be the same?
That's how I interpreted it, was go deeper, like deeper in your heart, deeper in your personal experience, deeper in your truth of what it is you're trying to share here. And a lot of times we avoid that because you need to be vulnerable and you need to face
That's
your own
exactly
truth.
what I just did.
Yeah.
Kelsey goes, go deeper. And I'm like, oh, you mean like bigger, like make our show brighter? That's like my Aquarius escape vibe. I'm like, like, or we could not. Love you.
And my Virgo said, no, this is okay. That totally makes sense. So let's, the physical.
Wait, one more thing that popped into my head when you said that was like a podcast studio. We're talking about the controlled environments and like the cave and like something that's like constant.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that popped into my head. Obviously, Najee and I live in different cities right now, but that's kind of where I naturally like took that initial thought to, which is interesting.
I can say all this is like tracking really, really well. I love the idea of like, I get excited when I can go somewhere else to work. That's not like my home base. I'm like, oh, I'm taking a field trip today. I'm actually excited and energized to work. I love that. But the whole cave piece, I definitely need that home base. Like Ava, what you're doing right now with like trotting all over the UK and like trying something new and doing this thing, I'm like, that sounds so fun, but I can never do that. Only because I'm like, I want to travel for 4 to 7 days, come back home, 2 weeks later, do it again. But as long as I have my home base, so that makes sense. Like I like to keep my environment fluid, but I like to have a home base. And to your point of just making things deeper, that's something that I think about from time to time when it comes to this podcast. And Ava, you remember we had a moment before we recorded our friendship podcast that really kind of like hit really close to kind of what Kelsey was talking about as far as like going deep into like really sharing and really feeling kind of what it is we're talking about and being more open. Only because these are things that I think about often because it really, really takes an effect to how you achieve your most authentic self. Not really hiding things back, peeling off those layers and showing people who you really are. Because that can be a really, really scary thing. And it's something that you have to grow in. And I think this podcast and this conversation that we're having definitely attributes to that.
Yes. My resistance levels are very high right now.
Same here,
But
babes.
you know what's funny? This is a little side note, but we did have a moment when we got ready to record the friendship podcast. And frankly, like I've just had like some hellish friendship experiences. And, you know, it's something that I'm like, I don't want to dig super deep into it. Like I'm going to start crying my eyes out. But Kelsey, you shared with me that you were listening to that episode and you're like, this is your best one yet. And for me, that's just a reminder that it's like when you do go deeper, when you do continue to lean into something that feels almost a little bit too vulnerable, like that's that sweet spot of actually like opening up your heart, opening up your mind and connecting to people, right? That's how we do it. And so I feel like this is a little full circle moment, but yes. This is so cool.
That actually segues perfectly into one thing that you both have is another layer of human design is called your profile. So when you pull it up, you'll see 2 numbers and you both have the same profile. So you're both a 1-3. And what that looks like is your 1 is all about like your knowing, your knowledge, your understanding of your life and the world around you. And the 3 is very much like experimenter energy. So what that kind of tells me is that you learn by experimenting, you learn that truth, what you know to be true by trying different things. Oftentimes that might look like making mistakes or look like you said, Ava, like going somewhere where you don't necessarily want to go in order to get that truth. But like you are wired to have that self-knowledge, that self-understanding, understanding of what you do for work or what you're currently working on. Like you have a very cerebral way of showing up in the world, but backed by that 3 is like, that's what you have to push yourself on, is making room for that trial and error to come through. So you might dip a toe in doing that cave, that deep energy, that podcast episode that you're like, shit, I don't want to do. But like, that is how you project and propel yourself forward in that one knowing. Like, you can't know anything, just by reading a book. It's when you actually get off the couch, go out in the real world and like do the thing that you're like, oh, I finally get this. Like, that's very much, you both have that too, which I think is really cool, because as a partnership, that gives a lot of space to deepen your own learning, because you have someone to talk to about it, but then also know that you're both wired like that. So you need to try things with this podcast, and you need to do things differently and just see what comes out of it, so what works, rather than, oh, this other podcast does this, or we saw that there's this new trend. It's like, yeah, we'll try it. If it works for you, it works, but it doesn't work just because someone said it works.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think that makes me a little hard-headed sometimes, because even when I look back at some of the mistakes I might have made, or some things that I might have done differently, I'm just like, someone could have told me 5 billion times not to do it. I would have done it anyway just to try it out.
Cosign.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last thing that I pulled for the two of you is, I was just looking at, so the different shapes somewhat align with the chakra system. So we won't go fully into that, but one thing that you both have is a very open sacral center. So if you look at the thing, it's the one not at the very bottom, but the one right above it. And when this is open, it can do 2 things. One, if you have an open center, and that's going to be one that doesn't have, like, it's not shaded in when you pull it. When you have an open center, it is a spot or an energetic center that can be, I'll describe it as like more easily influenced. And your sacral energy is all about like creativity and creating and being in that active energy. So with an open center, you might be influenced by other creative things you see. So it's a good thing to like unplug often. Don't creep on other podcasts for ideas, because it's just going to, fog up your own glasses. You don't always know when enough is enough. So you might be charting down this thing. Hey, we think we've got this great idea. Like, you guys kind of have to have each other's backs to say like, well, we need to just like pump the brakes. Or if you're like intuitively feeling like you need like a 2-week break from the podcast, but the podcast world says you got to do an episode every week or whatever, like, you got to help each other kind of pump those brakes, because an open sacral will just go, 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 go. And often people with open sacrals are like the most likely to get burnt out. So from an energetic standpoint of the podcast, you want to just make sure that you have the ability to say like, manage the energy of the podcast, I guess is what I'm encouraging.
Okay. That's good. We'll plan some little vacations along the way. Winter break.
That would be a good time to reassess and come back for season 2.
Oh, this is so awesome. And I love, like, you could talk about it all day, and we could listen to you talk about it all day, because there are just so many fascinating elements of all of this. I'm having a moment. Did we talk about the reflector profile type?
Oh, no, we didn't. Oh.
Our reflectors.
Add in one of those, those like rewind noises. Can you add one of those in?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so the 5th type is the reflector type. And these are rare birds. So this is about 1% of the population. I've had the good fortune to have 2 reflectors as clients, which like, it was actually a really cool moment. I was like, I really want to meet a reflector. And then like 2 came to me. It was just very manifested. So I think projectors have it hard in this world, but reflectors have it even harder. So reflectors are, if the whole world is a forest, reflectors are the owls up in the tree. They are seeing and sensing stuff before anyone even knows what's going on. So if you have a reflector friend, if you happen upon one, pay very close attention to what they say. Ask them like, hey, how do you think the world is going right now? And just like listen very carefully to what they say. I kind of have this theory that I bet there was a lot of reflectors who who knew like the pandemic was coming, for instance. Like my one reflector client, she's like, yeah, about 6 months before, she's like, it was major shifting energy in her heart, in her mind. Reflectors do something really cool in which as they go through, they're very tied to the moon. As they go through the moon cycle, they have different days in which that they can essentially, how do I want to describe it? Show up as the other types. So they're a reflector through and through, but they might have a couple days like a generator, a couple days like a projector, and their energy fluctuates in that way. And they have the ability to tap into all of those pretty seamlessly. When I say they're dependent on the moon cycle, the thing that they have it even harder is that they need that moon cycle to make decisions, to know what their true path is. So like, again, my reflector client, she's at the point now where she like doesn't make a business decision. She says, I need a month to think about that. But I don't know about you. When was the last time you were able to say like, I need a month to think about that, right? You don't. Everyone just wants the answer right here, right now. Got to tell me.
Yeah.
But a lot happens in that moon cycle for them. A lot unravels and a lot is revealed for them. And when they are able to step into that, it works wonders for them. A challenge that reflectors have is just like their namesake, they can be kind of a mirror. So you might have a reflector, let's say, for example, a reflector who meets a generator and falls in love. They might spend the rest of their life showing up as a generator. And if they decide to start down this human design path and start deconditioning and come back to their true reflector self, the generator they married may not even recognize the person that they ended up with, the reflector. Wow. Because they can be so good at reflecting, being like that person, that they lose themselves entirely and forget like literally who they are. So when I work with reflectors, and this is why I'm so fascinated by them, is that it's very much like knowing your intuition, knowing your own energy. Like they have to know their self probably more than any other type, because they can lose themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. I don't know if I know any reflectors.
I want to know more. So if any reflectors are listening,
right? Let us know. That's got to be like a very like I feel like finding out I was a projector was like kind of like a slap in the face in a good way. I feel like finding out that you're a reflector and being like, oh my God, like who even am I, with just that deep capacity to really take on and mirror, you know, anyone you may be spending a lot of time with. Like that's huge information, but I'm sure that's just incredibly like freeing too, to like understand that and dig into that.
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
Ooh. Okay.
Good thinking, Ava. I can't believe I skipped over it.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that we missed on the high level overview of human design? Breaking down the types. I think this like chart reading, this combo reading is so fascinating. And I feel like they're almost predictions in a way, or guide points to be like, okay, where are we, 6 months from now? Like, where have we really leaned into this information? And I think that's going to be like a really fun body of information to have and reflect on. But is there anything else that you'd like to share as it relates to human design?
Like I said in the beginning, when you first get into human design, there's all this language like what's a projector, what's a reflector, all these things when you're looking at your chart. There's a ton of free information online. Like just a simple Google search will get you like information galore. I would say while you're doing that, again, like be very in tune with your intuition. There are a lot of different human design practitioners out there. I would be on the lookout for someone who is creating content or creating resources who has an open mind when it comes to human design. I think there are some practitioners who are like very much like by the book, like you fit here and this is all you can be and there's no other answer to it. They don't leave a lot of room for like your intuitive, personal, subjective experience. So just keep in mind, I guess that's just sort of like internet safety in general, but just like know where you're getting your information from, what's the energy behind the person that's creating it, but otherwise just have fun. Like there's so much information out there that's just like so cool, and like even me as a student and a practitioner of it, just like bit by bit is all you really need. Like you can rabbit hole it, but it takes more than that to fully understand it.
Yeah. Go slow, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and make sure, like you mentioned, in all sources, you are really just connecting with someone you feel resonates with you. You feel like they have good intentions and they're giving that room for that intuition to come in. I think that's super, super valuable.
Mm-hmm. Intuition will definitely be your highest self. So always listen to it.
Absolutely. Which is full circle because the intuition is exactly what created this podcast. So
Yeah.
I feel like we've had a lot of fun connections woven through our time together today. So Kelsey, if people want to learn more about you, your work, if they want to work with you, how can they find you, and how are you taking on clients right now, or how are you serving people at the moment?
Yeah. So if you want to go deeper on human design, I have what's called a self-connection call. You can learn about it on my website, www.evermeandco.com. I do a lot of free content on my Instagram page at everme.and.co. So you can also check that out too. In the self-connection call, you get a customized report. So it's beautiful and it dives into all the different layers deeper than we went through. And then we get on a Zoom call for 90 minutes, and we talk through your chart. So some of the things that I talked about with your charts are similar to what we would talk about in that self-connection call. Other than that, yeah, I think that's the best place to start.
Okay. And I encourage everyone to get one of those charts. I have one. It's so beautiful. I pop it open, on occasion here or there. I just looked at it like last week because I keep going back to it. I'm like, what did that thing say? I feel like it's just a nice resource to have. And over time, it's kind of something that you grow into or you have more curiosities around. And I found it's just a really helpful tool. So if you're interested in human design, have Kelsey create a chart for you. I highly recommend. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kelsey. This was amazing.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. This was really fun.
Thank you for listening to the More podcast. If you loved today's episode, please rate and review us on your listening platform of choice, and tune in every Wednesday to hear the things that make us more us, so you can discover a thing or two to make you more you.